The following video will show you how to set up a 2010 ECL monitor for an ATSI test. With that, what we're going to cover is setting up the monitor for the test. Then we're going to show you how to set up the 8000 tester to test the monitor, and then I'm going to show you how to review the results of the test. So what we want to do is go ahead and program 1, 4, 6, and 7 to be on. Everything else off. On the SSM switches, we want them all to be on. And with that, as I said, we're going to have switch 1, 4, 6, and 7 on the on position, and everything else off. And then on the SSM switches, we're going to turn them all on. Now we're going to go ahead and put it into the ATSI tester. So I have the how-to guide that I've created to go ahead and test for the 2010 ECL on an ATSI 8000. I'm going to go ahead and fire up the ATSI program. Here's things that you want to go ahead and set up. You want to make sure that you do before you do the test, you might as well go ahead and put the information in, put in your serial number, and then device itself, which is a 210 ECL. Location is my training room. Test by me. Agency, of course, in this case it's Eberly. And then any notes. How to. So little notes. Now I got that ready to go. Now I want to go ahead and make sure I set up my test here. So in this case we have a Caltrans, and we're looking at it's Canadian. I want to move up, and we're going to go ahead and go to the Caltrans model 2010. We're going to be testing a 16 channel unit. We also want to make sure we put a full diode card into the device to do the test on. So you want to go ahead and make sure that you have your options set up here on the certification. If there's any additional settings you want to make, you can go here. Usually I don't have the run option test on, but that's how you go ahead and add options to the standard test. The other thing I usually like to do is make sure that if I do anything that I go ahead and save that name. So I'll give you an example. You can come in here and say this is for, you can give it a name, you hit rename, and say I want to call this video test group test on how to. And now I've saved that options, so you can have different options you want to do. If you want to do for flashing yellow arrow or any other things, I always recommend that you type this in, give it a name so you have it all the time. So at this time we're going to go ahead and hit the OK, and we're going to go ahead and hit the go. When we do that, it's going to, in this case I have to recalibrate my machine, which is fine. We're going to go ahead and wait. And I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel, and then here we go. I'm going to, once I did that, on the unit you'll start seeing the lights flash. You have a power. What I recommend is on here, if you notice, I want to make sure it says red fell, but what I always like to do is push and hold the reset for 5 seconds, so that way it's all programmed and ready to go. And then we're going to hit the OK button, and now it's going to go ahead and go through the test. It's going to take about 45 minutes to go through the whole test. So what I'm going to do is let this run for about 2 to 3 minutes so you can see what's going on. Whenever you get a fault, or failure, it's going to give you it here, and it's also going to tell you that it has failed. So at the end, you can get the report. I went ahead and came to this because one of the things I wanted to bring up is if you start having a failure here when you get the sine wave reference test, if you see a failure here, usually you want to check your power supply or your power that you're plugging the ATSI tester into, meaning your wall socket. Occasionally, if this is on the same circuit as a refrigerator or a space heater or anything that might turn off and on and spike the 120 volt 60 hertz line, could also cause that failure, or that this failure at the VRMS part of the test. Okay, we just came back with the complete test. Everything's good. At this point, it's going to ask you to save it. Depending on how you have your ATSI test set up, they're usually going to ask you, this is going to be doing there's the long file and the short file. And I'm going to go ahead and you like to give it a date. It defaults and gives you a date, and defaults and puts it in your C drive under a directory that the tester already has. I usually also add that this is the long form, because that's the first one they do. So I always put long, and then it's going to ask you for the second one, and I usually go ahead and put the short, and this one just shows you which ones you passed and failed. The way you can look at it too is you can go ahead and look at the directory. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up here on C, and you can see the difference between a long and short file. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up under status, and of course I opened up the wrong one. Here it is, and here's the long one. And if you notice, it's long. It's usually 8 pages, and it goes into high detail. And the short one is just going to tell you what it passed or what it failed. So that's usually a 2-pager. Most people use a 2-pager so they can archive, especially if it passed. So if you have any questions, contact me at 602-396-1284, or you can always get a hold of me by support@editraffic.com.